All right, welcome back. Let's get into some more TI11 team previews. And in case you've missed it, I've been doing previews for each and every team attending this year's International. And you can find those all linked down in the description or my most recent videos on my channel. And now we are getting up to the fourth place team in the entire DPC, the #1 seed from South America, the fan favorite Beastcoast, finishing with a total of 1,810 DPC points. These guys have really garnered themselves a sort of infamous, if you will, status over the past few years. And it all feels like it's been built off of the back of one fantastic run that they had a few years ago back at TI9, when it felt like these guys were pretty much nobodies and they just rallied the support of an entire region behind them, and they've been riding that wave ever since. And they've been doing it justice, regardless with some inconsistent results that they've had over the past couple years. These guys have cemented themselves as one of the best and funnest rosters to watch out of the South American region, not only because of their skill, but also because of how volatile their games can be and just ridiculously entertaining, sometimes for very stupid reasons. So, taking a look at this roster, again, a lot of these members, this will be their third time attending TI, and each time they have been has been with playing with one another. Their furthest run together was finishing top 8 back at TI9 with Infamous. They have since, of course, switched orgs over to Beastcoast, and since then, they've been trying to find that momentum again to get to where they were at TI9 and maybe even past that point. Of course, last year, they had an unfortunate round 1 loss in the lower bracket in the best of ones to Alliance. That was a very close game. It felt like it could have gone either way, but unfortunately for Beast Coast, it just didn't pan out. But they're looking to turn things around this year, bringing in a new coach, Valky, who's going to be attending his first ever TI this time. The furthest he has ever been, the closest he has ever been to a TI up until this point was finishing 4th place in the TI7 qualifiers with Mad Kings, and that was as a player. This will be his first time attending TI or attempting to get to TI as a coach, so we'll see how he does and how the team will do under his coaching. And taking a look at the results now for the past year of Beast Coast, it has been a remarkably consistent season for Beast Coast, all things considered. A few bumps in the road here and there, but overall, taking a look at the big picture, for Beast Coast, this has been a fantastic year, one to really be proud of. And again, it kind of showed me that they were able to be consistent, which was an issue for Beast Coast over the past few years. We've kind of seen them slip a little bit, especially last year in the DPC when it felt like they were starting to get challenged for that #1 spot in South America. They weren't taking it all that well. And this year, they've really stepped up and shown that they don't need to finish first place in the region to be the #1 seed in South America. Kicking things off with the first tour in South America of the year. They actually finished 3rd place. They struggled a little bit in those first few weeks there, notably having K1 Hector taking some time off in a few of those series. They would end up, I believe, winning their tiebreaker series, which would get them into #3. But thankfully for them, they didn't end up missing out on the major because they didn't end up having one. So they get slotted into the regional finals where they would go a clean 3-0, making it all the way to the grand finals and then sweeping Infamous when they get there, earning themselves 250 more DPC points to add to their 120 that they got in the first tour. So, again, a bit of a shaky start in the first tour, but hey, you just won your regional finals. That's got to feel pretty good. They would carry that momentum into Tour 2, where they would finish 2nd place, which would clinch them top 2 and a spot to the major. They go 5-2, 240 more DPC points there. And at the Stockholm Major, again, they don't necessarily perform super great in the group stage, but when they're on the main stage, they are always a threat, and again, their matches are always entertaining. They go 0-4-2 in the group stage, which again, not fantastic. It gets them into the lower bracket, but they would knock out 2 teams before getting knocked out themselves in the lower bracket, clinching a top 6 spot, earning 385 more DPC points. They would keep up that consistency with an exact same record almost in the following tour, where in Tour 3 they would finish 2nd place once again off of a tiebreaker win, going 5-2, 300 more DPC points, and another top 6 finish at a major, going 1-4-2, again clinching lower bracket and knocking out 2 teams before getting knocked out themselves. A very, very similar tour to the one that we had before, which is really nice to see from this team, that it's felt like over the past few years, like I've mentioned, have been lacking that consistency. Taking a look now at the results against other teams attending this year's International, this will kind of give us an idea of what we can expect to see from this team matched up against the other best teams in the DPC heading to this year's tournament. This is going to be including teams that are in the last chance qualifiers, just because we don't know who will be officially attending yet. In Tour 1, it again wasn't great. They would beat Hokori 2-0, but then they would drop to Infamous and Thunder Awaken. However, in the regional finals, they would take down Infamous twice in a best of 3 and in a best of 5, not dropping a single game to them, and beating Thunder Awaken on the way to those grand finals, which would be the only time that they would actually be able to take down Thunder Awaken in the entire year. That has notably been one weakness with Beastcoast. They cannot seem to consistently overcome Thunder Awaken. But to their credit, they haven't really needed to. They've made it further in both majors than Thunder Awaken. Tour 2, they would take down Hokori once again. They would then lose to Infamous and Thunder Awaken, but they would win their matchup against Hokori in the tiebreakers, which would clinch them top 2. They would start off the Stockholm Major, maybe not as great as they were hoping, losing to OG 2-0, then tying Bet Boom, but they would follow that up with some more consistent results, tying Boom, T1, losing to Tundra, but they would tie EG, they would take down Team Spirit, and Bet Boom in the lower bracket, which are two pretty huge teams, notably Team Spirit with that first round exit in the lower bracket. Beastcoast, a huge upset there for them, but eventually getting knocked out 2-0 by the Gaming Gladiators, who were on their way for, I believe, a top 4 finish. In Tour 3, they would take down Tempest in their first matchup against the team that was coming in from the lower bracket, or the lower division of South America. They would take down Hokori and Infamous. They would lose to Thunder Awaken once again, but they would take down Infamous in that tiebreaker match, which would clinch them again top 2. And in the Arlington Major, they would lose to Team Spirit and Na'Vi right off the bat. Again, not a great start to the group stage, which seems to be a weakness with Beastcoast. When it comes to LAN tournaments, group stages tend to be the weakest point of the tournament for them, which can be a little bit detrimental because group stages are very important. Starting upper bracket is a very important thing. Your odds of winning TI when starting in the lower bracket are incredibly slim. I don't think we've ever seen a team win when they started in the lower bracket, but I could be wrong. I know Liquid went all the way to the grand finals in TI9, but I think that was the furthest run that we ever saw from a team in the lower bracket that started there. But they would follow it up with some pretty consistent results, taking down Boom, tying against EG, Aster, Entity, and Tundra, and then on the main stage, knocking out teams like Fnatic, like Virtus Pro, before getting eventually knocked out by OG, which would round out their DPC season. Taking a look at some stats now, and this was all pulled from the 108 games that Beastcoast has played throughout this past DPC season, every single game that they've played. And on Radiant and Dire, they went 37-26 on Radiant, 26-19 on Dire. Pretty consistently good results no matter what orientation they had. First pick, they were 39-27, and on last pick, 24-18. For a combination of the two, Radiant first pick, they go 26-18. On Radiant last pick, they go 11-8, so that win rate comes down just a little bit. On Dire first pick, they go 13-9, and on Dire last pick, they go 13-10. So pretty close there. Didn't seem to matter what pick order they had when they were on Dire. But they did tend to favor Radiant first pick, as that was the orientation that they ended up with quite a lot. For games that were less than 40 minutes, and again, this is another thing that very similar to Thunder Awaken, where they have a remarkably good win rate in games that were short, and once games get a little bit longer, that win rate starts to come down. It's not as drastic as the one that Thunder Awaken has, but it is still notable. 46-28 for a 62% win rate in games that were less than 40 minutes. But once you cross that 40-minute mark, they have an even 50% win rate, 17-17. And another notable weakness with Beastcoast, not only having longer games, but also game ones has been a struggle for them. Starting series off strong. Same thing you could say in the grander picture as the group stage, the very beginning of the tournament. You could say the same thing for the very beginning of a series. They tend to struggle quite a bit. They have a negative win rate of 48%, 22 wins and 24 losses. But they are very good at bouncing back. In game twos, they are 29-17. And in deciding game threes, they were pretty dominant, going 12-4 for a 75% win rate in those deciding games. So again, Beastcoast, if they can get themselves to the point where they're not behind 1-0 in a best of 3 series, and they can actually start off strong or at least get to that third game, then they should be set up for success. It's just a matter of starting off strong, which is going to be huge for Beastcoast heading into this year's International, and something to definitely look out for once we get into the group stage for TI11. Taking a look now at their GPM, 2354, an average XPM of 2868, an average KDA of 3.02, which is actually probably the lowest that we've seen of every team that we've previewed, but it's not because these games are slow. It's not because there's just a lack of kills. It's actually the opposite. There are so many kills on both sides that it actually ends up bringing down their KDA because they have more deaths on their side, so it brings the average down. These games are always packed with kills. It again is one of the reasons why this team is one of the most chaotic teams you could ever watch on a reliable basis. I don't know how people can cheer for this team and be fans of this team. I would be constantly having heart attacks watching them, and I'm not even a fan, and I still feel that sometimes. Not that I'm not a fan, but you know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, these games are just absolute bloodbaths, and they're one of my favorite teams. And I really hope that they have a nice run at this year's International in the brackets, because it just adds more chaos to everything. And I feel like that's what this team really thrives off of. And an average match duration, finally, of 36 minutes and 54 seconds. Finally, let's take a look at some hero stats. They picked a total of 93 different heroes across those 108 games. Their most picked being Snapfire with 27, Mars with 26, Clockwork with 24, Earth Spirit with 19. We then had Shadow Demon with 18 and Juggernaut with 16. Their best heroes being Wraith King, of course. That's a Hector Classic who went 5-0. Not played all that much, but still a flawless win rate. Underlord who went 7-1. We then had Templar Assassin who went 6-1. Lena who went 9-2. Luna who went 7-2. And Earth Spirit, of course, the Schofield Classic who went 14-5. Their worst hero was Ember Spirit, 0-3. We then had Nyx Assassin, who went 2-6, and Gyrocopter, who went 1-4. For most banned, we had Puck with 33, Beastmaster with 30, and Razor with 26. So this team, again, things to look out for this year's International. Look for them to start off strong. It is crucial for this team to start off strong. If they can get themselves to the point where it's a best of 3 and it's game number 3, you can count on them to come ahead more often than not. Another thing with Beastcoast, they are an incredibly momentum-based team. This team strives off of chaos. This team strives off of one player kind of just taking over the game, and we see that from every role pretty much. I've seen countless games where Whisper is just absolutely 1v5ing the other team, and he just solo wins the game for Beastcoast. Same thing for K1. Of course, Hector, sometimes it's not as flashy because he'll be farming for the first few minutes, and then all of a sudden he just comes in and wins the game. Same thing for, of course, Chris Luck or C-Smile, whatever you want to call him, and of course, Schofield on his roaming heroes. Fantastic. And of course, shout out to position 5 Stinger. It's a little harder to solo carry from that role when you're not playing a hero like Earth Spirit or Timbersaw or Wraith King. But regardless, this team strives off of this, and it's going to be super important for them to get that confidence early, to start off on the right foot. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Where do you think Beastcoast will place at this year's International? I have a feeling it's either going to be a struggle, they're out in the first round of the lower bracket, or they make a nice deep run to top 6, maybe top 4, maybe grand finals. Who knows? I don't really see it being anywhere in between that because, again, this team is hugely based on momentum, and it's just a matter of whether or not they get that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be having my previews for the final 3 teams heading into this year's TI11, OG, PSG LGD, and Team Spirit up in just a few days. So if you don't want to miss that, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss it. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.